In this video, we're going to show you how to install the brake flex hose on your Cadillac Escalade located on the passenger side rear brakes. We're going to start by rotating our wheel, and you want to take this little notch in our center cap and keep rotating it until the notch lines up with the notch in the wheel. Use a trim tool or screwdriver to go ahead and get in there and just pry off that center cap gently, set it aside. Using a 22mm socket, we're going to go ahead, loosen and remove our lug nuts. Once we have these all off, we can go ahead and we'll remove the wheel and set that aside. Behind the brake rotor, we're going to notice the hard line right here, and it comes around and it attaches to the flex hose. Now this is on the top of the rear axle, just outboard of the rear coil spring. Now we have to go ahead and loosen this bolt right here. That is a 13mm, and it threads in to the to the flex line itself, and the flex line is locked into place via this little horseshoe clip right here. What we want to do is try and loosen this first. It doesn't want to come free. We're going to go ahead and spray it with some rust penetrant and let that soak for a little bit. Now after this is soaked for a little bit, here we go. Now the key thing you want to pay attention to is when you're loosening this nut, make sure that the hard line is not twisting. If that is twisting, that means that the line is rusted to the nut, and you can break that hard line. That's going to open up a can of worms for you. So make sure it is loose. The other thing you can do is once you loosen it a little bit, is tighten it. Work it back and forth and continue to spray it down with some rust penetrant. Now we do have a catch can underneath to catch any residual spray drops or when the brake fluid starts to come out. Now we have a constant flow of brake fluid leaking out now. Now as I'm loosening this nut, I now have a finger on the hard line and I'm pulling it out. So once we get to that point, that hard line should separate from that, just like that. Our next step is jump to this clip, and I'm going to tap that with a hammer. Now this is a horseshoe style retainer. I'm going to set that aside. Now we can go ahead and grab, we should be able to grab that. Might have to break that free. Here it is. Break that free, pull it out of the bracket. Now that we have the flex hose disconnected from there, I'm going to take the new one. I'm going to install it into the bracket. The key thing we want to pay attention to, on the flex hose, it does have a locking setup, so it has like an octagon setup on there. So as you insert it in, you can twist it and it'll actually lock into the bracket. You can take your horseshoe, make sure that it's arched. Line that up. You can tap that on or push that on. Tap that clip on. Install the hard line. And we're going to start this nut in there. You have to make sure you get it started by hand and get it in several threads before you start to tighten it with a tool. You do not want to cross thread this. So I'm going to have to flex that hard line around a little bit. You're going to feel it bottom out. You want to go ahead and make sure that's good and tight. Now that we have the hard line good, tight, and secured, spray it down, clean up any residual brake fluid here, and let's move to the caliper. Now on the caliper side, this is an 11mm bolt. I'm going to remove this. Now when you remove this here, there is the bolt, and then there are two copper washers. One of them which is actually stuck right now. There's one on this side here and one on the bolt head side. In some cases you'll have to grab that washer and spin the bolt out of the washer. There it is right there. We'll remove that bolt. We have to get the washer off of the bolt itself. Here we go. It is now removed. Install a new washer on the bolt. Grab our cable end here. Put the bolt through. Install the second washer. Once you get that started, we can go ahead and run that down in. We want to make sure it's good and tight. And then we could spray that down with some solvent. Now that you have the line installed, we're now going to proceed to the brake bleeding procedure. The bleeder screw is located on the back inboard portion of the brake caliper. With the hood open, locate your reservoir. With a rag and some solvent, clean the top. The reason for this is we don't want to have any debris fall inside that unit. And the other thing you want to make sure is that you can identify your fill marks on the side. Here we have a minimum, which is right at the seam, and a max, which is roughly about an inch up above it. Open up that cap, twist it counterclockwise. In most cases, it's going to identify what type of brake fluid you want to use. DOT3 as well as DOT4 are going to be okay for this application. If it doesn't have that, make sure you identify that type of fluid before you replace it. And we're going to use our extraction tool to remove as much brake fluid from the reservoir as possible. You can use something like a turkey baster or something like that, any suction tool. And then have a container to put that into. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses when doing this. Just put that into an alternate reservoir somewhere so you can dispose of that properly later. We're going to fill up the reservoir. You can see we went over the max line. But what we're going to do is we're going to seal this up and proceed to our brake bleeding process. As we do that, it's going to leak out fluid and it's going to dissipate down through here. Periodically, we're going to come back and top off the reservoir during our process. So our procedure for bleeding our brake calipers themselves, we're going to start at the right rear, then we're going to go to the left rear, then to the right front, and ending with the left front. So go ahead and locate your bleeder on the back side here. We're going to pull this off. And we have a hose here that goes to a catch can underneath. We're going to put that on. Now there is a clear hose on this that goes to our bottle. So what we're going to do is as we open up that bleeder, we're going to watch for air bubbles coming through. What we want is a solid stream of fluid coming through. So at this point, I'm going to have the person inside the vehicle pump up the brakes 3 to 5 times, and they're going to hold pressure on that. And then I'm going to open up the bleeder screw, letting fluid come through. Go ahead. Okay, they're holding that pedal. And open this up. Now this is a 10 millimeter. Okay. Pump it up. I'm going to continue this procedure. Could take anywhere from maybe 2 to 5 times. Okay, no air bubbles. So we're going to secure this. We're going to pull off our drain Give that a quick wipe. Now we're going to go ahead and repeat the same exact process over on the driver's side rear. Let's pop this cap on. And we do that same process on the other side. At this point here, you want to go up top, and we're going to top off the master cylinder fluid. Open up the reservoir. Fill the reservoir to the max line. Install cap. Now here we are on the right front wheel, and the third one that we need to do, remove the rubber boot from the bleeder if you have one. If not, it's just going to be exposed. And install our rubber seal here with our tube. Go ahead and pump up the brakes. Had a little bit of air in there. Go ahead, pump it up. Okay, that is solid. And clean off the port. Install the rubber cap. Go ahead and proceed to the driver's side front. Open up the reservoir. If the rubber is poking out like that, simply push that in so it's recessed. Fill the reservoir to the max line. Install cap. Now you want to clean any mess and pump your brake pedal to make sure that it's firm. If it's not, then bleed the entire system again. Torque your wheels to 140 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.